Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. The podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are celebrating what Thanksgiving is mostly known for, which is crazy families. So we're doing books this month kind of based around family dynamics, maybe interesting, maybe crazy, maybe, not the most healthy relationships in families. And we're thankful.
I don't think anybody... Yes, yeah, exactly. I don't think anybody has a straight, perfect movie family. Everybody's squeaky clean and,
Yeah, no. But, it's one of those things. John was trying to think of, for Thanksgiving, what do we do? Thanksgiving books? I'm like, there aren't really comics about Thanksgiving. But what else is in Thanksgiving? Awkward family moments. And so we just kind of extrapolated from that, family, weird family shit that happens, or, books with bad families in them and stuff. So this week, for the first week or podcast of this month, we're doing Miss Tree. Now, John, have you ever heard of Miss Tree before I suggested it?
Mystery? Mystery? What?
Miss Tree. Yeah,
No.
It is a very clever title.
I was clever, yes. No, I had not. No, I didn't heard anything about it. I think I saw one of the covers sitting on
yes, on my comic book box.
Yeah. Came by the other day, and I was like, and it was one of those, the title and the cover caught my eye. I was like, who's this badass bitch with a gun? And I was like, okay. And I was like, Miss Tree. I was like, hi, okay, that's interesting. Is it a mystery comic? Is it a PI comic? What's going on here? And yeah, so no, I hadn't, and I'm glad that you told me about it, and that you because you found this randomly too.
I found this randomly
that long ago.
Yeah, about 6 months ago. I was kind of getting into crime comics again, or more hardcore, and I was just looking for good comics, and I noticed that there's a series by Titan called Hard Case Crime. I guess it's an imprint. So I was reading a bunch of those, and one of the writers of some of those comics is Max Allan Collins, who is a comic book writer, but he's also a novel writer, and he specifically writes books that I love to read. He continued the Mickey Spillane character of Mike Hammer. So he actually got the right, not the rights. He was asked by Mickey Spillane before he died to continue writing the Mike Hammer books. He got the blessing of the author. That's fucking cool. It's kind of like when Richard Stark died, he let Darwin Cook continue writing the Parker books until he died. So, or until Darwin Cook died. And so very rarely does that happen for certain people. So, since Mickey Spillane died, Max Allan Collins has been continuing based on, I think they're all stuff that Mickey Spillane left notes for. But he's been continuing writing the books in the same vein. I've read them and I'm like, oh wow, he did a really good job at continuing the feel. And he didn't change the character any, he's respectful of the material. So I really like his books. He also has a series called Quarry, which is great, that I love. Is a little bit more, he's not so old school like Mickey Spillane's character is, but both of those characters have been adapted into comics, both written by him for Hard Case Crime. So as part of that imprint, they put out Miss Tree. And apparently, this is a series that was started in the early 80s by Max Allan Collins and Scott Beatty. And originally it was just self-published through Renegade Press and Aardvark Vanheim, which is the people that do Cerebus, and Dave Sims' company. And then he put it out through Eclipse Comics, who also did Miracle Man and some stuff that we've read. And then in the 90s, they started doing, they were commissioned by DC to do Mystery Quarterlies, so they're a little bit longer. And that's what this first volume collects. It collects, not in the original order, it doesn't collect the first issues, it collects the DC run Specifically, I think the first 5 stories of that or around there. Um, and so that's an interesting way to publish, right? Because some people were mad that they did not start from issue 1 of the 80s stuff, and they just skipped that and kind of went to the, we'll say, because I like it all. I've read all 4 volumes that are out right now. There's a 5th volume coming out in December, and I think they're all great, and each of them are just as engrossing as this one is. But this is definitely, because it's in color, it's a lot more accessible. You know, it has the DC like money behind it when it came out, and so it's got a lot higher production value. Some of the other earlier comics are very, we'll say, rough, because the style hadn't, like Scott Beatty, 20 years later he was doing this for DC. So imagine, take your art back 20 years. He's not the artist he is in this, but it's still good. It's just, and it's in black and white, or it's in like two-tone, kind of like Parker is, where it's got the blue and the, so he'll have like orange in that, or blue and black and white or whatever. So they didn't have a lot of money, so it's kind of, it's there. It's still good. It's just, if you're going to put books out for a character that's not that well known, you might as well put your best foot forward. And that's what they did with this publishing order. So the first book, which is called One Mean Mother, is actually the stuff from DC. So it's like the later published stuff. And like you said, Miss Tree is the name of the main character. She is a PI, so it's kind of like a crime / mystery comic. And we start off with her in the first issue, and she's asleep, and someone's breaking into her house, and she fills us in on all this stuff because she's dreaming of her husband Mike, who just died, he died, fairly recently. Actually, no, not in this. He died, in the first run, like in the 80s stuff. So he dies, like he gets killed by an assassin, and no one knows who it is. So it's something that's kind of haunted her, but she still dreams about her husband because she liked Mike, her husband, and loved him very much, I should say. And but as this person's breaking in, we see that they have a key. She's like, she's fast in her dream, but she hears a phone ring, and that wakes her up, which kind of alerts her to someone being in the house, and like literally alerts her, because the person on the phone is like, hey, the person who killed your husband is in your house right now, and they're about to kill you. And we see that the person breaking in has a silencer on the pistol. They have multiple keys to the alarm system, the doors of the house. And the person on the phone is like, no, it's like, I did this as a present to you. This isn't a joke. The guy who killed your husband is here, and you should kill him first. And so Mystery isn't one to hesitate, we'll say. So she gets her gun. She waits for the guy. She kind of does hear him, and she turns the light off before he gets in her room, so he can't see anything. And then he knows that she's awake now because the light turned off, but he also can't see her, and he takes some wild shots. He misses her, and then she shoots him immediately in the chest. And like, he's wearing body armor, I guess, so it doesn't kill him, but it does knock him down. And then she thought she killed him, but when she goes up to him, he grabs her, and she's just in her underwear, so very vulnerable except the gun. He's able to knock the gun out of her hand, but he's also vulnerable because she says, oh, you wore body armor, huh? But you didn't bring a cup. And she like grabs his nuts and squeezes very hard, so much that he lets her go. She's able to get the gun, and he's just on the ground, like grabbing his nuts in pain. And then we just get a panel of Blam outside of her window. So she just kills this guy while he's on the ground in pain. And I think this opening sequence tells you everything you need to know about Miss Tree. What do you think, John?
Oh yeah, I liked it. I liked that she had one little, or little kind of quip one-liner kind of things too. I enjoyed that in a character. So yeah, her being like, "Oh, you're in pain. Let me take care of that for you." I do, and it kills him. And yeah, so it was fun, and like, yeah, like she can hold her own right away. I like the guy shot like wildly in the room, and she's like, "Oh, you didn't think to shoot back on the bed, did you, idiot?"
Yeah.
Whatever. And so yeah, so I liked her personality right away. I was like, "Ooh, okay." I'm very intrigued. Yeah, I was sucked in immediately.
So John, let me ask you something, because this confused me when I first read it, because I had no idea about what this was. I just knew it was called Miss Tree, and obviously she's Miss Tree. But her first name is Michael, which is interesting. Not a usual name for a woman. And people keep calling her Michael, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But they bring it up just after like the little title sequence, where like we see, okay, they like her parents. She's like, one thing I like about Miss Tree is they do not assume you know this character. So very quickly in each issue, they catch you up on what you need to know about the character and what's happened in the past that is pertinent to this issue. And so they tell you, you know, my husband Mike died. He was a cop before. When the police show up to get this this assassin that she killed, you know, that's the guy that worked with her husband before he became a PI when he was a cop. And so, like, we get everything we need to know about, you know, her husband being killed. He was a PI. She knows this cop. They're friends. And also like that the Muerta family is the people that killed her husband. So, that's like the setup for this. And were you confused at all by the whole Michael thing? Because also her husband's name is Michael too. So there's three Michaels in this. Mike Tree, which is the husband. Michael Tree, which that's her married name, Tree. So Michael is her first name. I don't remember what her last name or like her maiden name was. But she took her husband's name, so they both were Michael Tree, which is kind of funny. And then the son that she has now, which was Michael's child, that was like his first wife's child with him.
Her stepson.
Yeah, her stepson is named Michael Tree Jr.
You took a very long way around to say stepson.
That's true, I did. I forgot what that was called. So, so yeah, but yeah, there's 3 Michael Trees in this book that they mention throughout the thing, and it like most people call her Miss Tree though, so it's not that confusing. But just so you know, it is an interesting thing to do. I would say for like a character, you're going to call 3 people the same name in a book. That is not like, you know, that'd be like if you had 4 people in Superman called Kal-El, and then, you know, it's like, oh, no, that's not, this is Superman Kal-El, and that's Cyborg Superman Kal-El, or whatever. But yeah, were you confused at all by that?
I was at first between the husband and her. Like, I obviously got Junior. But yeah, I was like, well, wait a minute. His name is Mike, and her name is yeah. Like I was like, Mike.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Yeah. So that took me a second, but it didn't. I was able to breeze into it, and then it didn't. You know, like you said, they pretty much call her Miss Tree for most of the.
Yeah, for most of it. So,
yeah.
So she knows, like, okay, obviously the people that killed my husband is the Muertas. So the person who called, maybe I have a suspicion of who it might be. Why would they, you know, alert me? So she goes to a building that says MEI on the front of it, and that's Muerta Enterprises International. And it turns out that in a previous book, Miss Tree had killed, the matriarch or the patriarch of this crime family, the Muertas. And now Dominique Tree is in charge of it, and she's trying to make the company legit. Turns out that that through the years, you know, they've had money laundering because they used to deal drugs and guns and stuff and get into mob, you know, enterprises. But to wash that money, they had to have legit businesses, and then over time, the legit businesses became profitable and even more profitable than the illicit businesses. So this new head of the organization is trying to make it, you know, legit. So as part of that, she says that, you know, when Miss Tree gets to the office, Dominique Muerta says, "Hey, did you like my present? I'm the one who sent the killer to your house. I hired him, but also I'm the one who called you so that you could kill him." You know, like, and so I do like that Miss Tree will just pull out a gun like right away, like she just walked into the office and has a gun, and yeah. So, like, you get both women, though, are obviously very strong because one is, like, the head of a crime family, and Miss Tree is just Miss Tree. She's got a gun. She's not afraid to use it, and we established that right away. But also, Dominique did this because Mike Jr., her stepson, mystery stepson, is going out with the Muerta's daughter, Dominique's daughter. So, or is it her daughter or niece? I can't remember. Is one of them, daughter or niece?
It's her. It's her daughter.
Okay. So yeah. So Dominique's daughter is going out with Michael Tree Jr. And so now they're like, well, you're going to be family. We all know the mob's all about family. So this is family, eh? So, and that's why, once again, this is part of that fucked up family that we're referencing in our Thanksgiving stuff because it's all messy. We find out that there's another brother named Dominic. It's funny because there's like Dominique and Dominic, and he's Dominique's brother, and he's like an up and comer. And oh no, his name's Donald. I'm sorry, Donald. They call him Donnie. I thought it was Dominic, but it's Donnie. And so yeah, she finds out about that. So just you get all the like back and forth. Miss Tree does end up punching her in the face because she's like, I don't want to be part of your family, and I don't want to be part of your business. Because Dominique asks her to be head of security, and says like, oh, you have to like you'll have to stop your PI business, but you can work for me, and we'll keep everything in the family, and like we're all family now. And Miss Tree is not happy about that, so she punches Dominique. So, so later that night, after Miss Tree leaves, Dominique gets killed. Someone comes in her office. It's very obvious that she knows the person because she says, oh, hey, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be in here without an appointment. And then bam, 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 she's killed. So that's like the mystery of this first one is who killed Dominique Muerta. There's a lot of people who it could be. Obviously, some people think it is Miss Tree because she had a scuffle with Dominique in her office. She like punched her earlier that day. But, there's a couple obvious suspects other than Miss Tree because we know that she didn't do it. So what'd you think about like the mysteries in this book, like the whodunits? Like, did you think they were easy to figure out, or did you find them like unsolvable until she solved it and told you?
There were a couple that got me for sure. In particular, I like how Donnie is brought up in this more too, because the way Donnie is drawn, he very much comes off to me as like an '80s
Miami Vice
mobster.
Yeah.
Miami Vice. He's got kind of like a short flat top kind of hair, except he's got that ponytail pulled tight up to the back of his head, just sticking out, look like a ponytail rat tail, basically.
Yeah.
And so immediately I'm like, this guy's bad.
Yeah. But it turns
So,
out he's not, he's not really bad. I mean, he does benefit from his sister being killed. Well, I'll say he's bad in a way that like he's a mob person, but he's not going out of his way and murdering people on his own.
For sure. And I guess we can kind of say now then, yeah, like I think that was my favorite red herring of this whole thing because he is in the mob and he is he's a bad guy, but not a bad guy.
Yeah. You know how it is.
Yeah. And I like that he, like there's only one time where things get like really sketchy with him, but in general, like he is kind of a red herring throughout a lot of this. And I really enjoyed that he ended up not really being someone that was out to get her. So
right,
that
yeah,
was a nice take on it on a bad guy.
Yeah, but the cool thing is that he's not blameless because he did plan some things, and then we'll kind of get into that. But we do get introduced before we spoil the mystery of this first issue. We get introduced to the mystery PI with Tree Investigations. We meet all the people who work for her. So there's like the secretary lady who's Effie. She helps out more than just like phone calls and shit though. So she's not a normal secretary from this era. And then also we have Dan, who is a one-handed, one-eyed tough guy who's also a PI. And then Roger, who's kind of like the suit-wearing book guy, but he's also a PI. They both have their strengths. Dan's obviously more hands-on, no pun intended, because he only has one hand. But Roger does get some licks in these comics as well. But they both are very affectionate but professional towards her. Like it's a very platonic, respectful relationship, which I think is good. You can tell they're both upstanding guys. Because this comic could, if written by certain people, or even Max Allan Collins doesn't shy away from sex and stuff in his books, even in this book. And he could have made her more. He could have made the guys a lot more creepy and weird that work with her, and he could have made her a lot more like helpless or, like ditzy or something, you know. But she's very capable in all situations, even when she is outsmarted or in trouble. She is still. It's not because she's stupid or you know what I mean. Like he writes her very competent, and I think that's a really good character to have, and especially because this was originally a character from the 80s. She's always been like that in the early stuff and in this 90s stuff. She's definitely written that way, and I like that. But back to the story, we learn that she goes back to obviously she wants to clear her name because she's a suspect in this murder of Dominique. So she goes back to the Muerta Industries where Donald now runs it because he's the next in line, and we find out that there was a security guy that she was going to take his place when Dominique offered her the job, and he used to work with Mike Tree Sr., the husband of Michael Tree, and so like she knows him. She actually lets him stay on. She's like, hey, I'm not gonna. She says I want that job to Donald, and so she takes the security job. But then when she talks to the security guy, he's like, I'll get out of your way. I know you're firing me, and she's like, no. You can stay. You'll be my assistant, and you'll pretty much do everything I want to change. Like I'll be the figurehead. I'll tell you when I want change and what I don't, and you just make those changes with the staff and whatnot. So she's kind of like nice to him, which is cool. One of my favorite panels is out as she's investigating Donald Muerta because he is her top suspect. She interviews a bunch of employees, and this scene, it's like a 6-panel grid, and we get like each character talking about Donald, but what they're saying flows into the next character's speeches. So the first guy's like, I walked because I didn't like the mentality of the Muerta Enterprises, specifically Donnie Muerta, who was a yuppie from hell. As far as I'm concerned, a ponytail, and then the next guy starts talking, and it says sneak. So it like finishes the sentences, and I really, really like. It was very much like a movie, but this is from the 90s. You don't see too many movies that are doing this kind of stuff. Then I've seen some stuff do that after that. Not that I think that they read this or whatever, because this is a pretty deep cut, but like that's just Max Allan Collins is a very good writer, and he's got a very good a very cinematic way of telling a story. He hits all the beats perfectly, I think. So, but yeah, she interviews all these people, and none of them seem like they're the ones who did anything, but she does get the head of security guy says like, hey, I got a tip for you. Some guy called and said, he wants to meet one-on-one with you in the parking garage because he's got information that you would be interested in. So she goes to the parking garage, and as she's waiting, no one new shows up, but the security guard guy shows up, and he's got a gun in his hand. And it turns out that he is the man who shot Dominique. And he did it supposedly on Donald's orders. Now, this is what I was saying with Donald isn't like the bad guy, like he's not killing people, but he is, according to this, and we don't really know if what he says is true, but according to the security guard, is in so many words, Donald said, boy, I wish my sister would die. And then that was taken by the security guard to mean, you want me to kill your sister, So,
yeah.
So he did it. And then, Donald has like, immunity because he said, and also he records the conversations. So he never said like, you kill my sister. He said, boy, sometimes I wish someone would take that bitch out or whatever. And then this guy took it upon himself. So you can't really fault him for that. But then he's also not a bad guy, the security guard. So he's got a gun on Miss Tree, but he doesn't want to actually kill her because she's innocent and he likes her and he knew her husband and everything. And as she's kind of talking him down, all of a sudden he gets shot by someone who was in the shadows and had followed him there. It turns out that this guy was also a person that was talking to Donald, and Donald was like, man, I would really like it if you would follow Miss Tree in case she needs any protection from someone who might want to hurt her. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then the guy took that to mean, oh yeah, you want me to kill the guy that meets with her in the garage. So Donald is obviously not a good guy, but he's also not saying anything explicit, you know. These guys are taking it upon themselves to do what they think he wants, which, you know, could be up or down, you know, like, is he good or bad? But he's definitely in the mob, but he's definitely killed people before. So, and that's the end of the first issue. So John, like, what did you think about that first issue? Like, I know you said, you know, you liked the way that this one was like a red herring kind of thing.
Well, so like I think I mean like overall throughout the whole thing we read, like he kind of comes off like, yeah, like you said, like
Oh
he
yeah,
did
and all of these stories, he could be a suspect because he is in the mob, right? Like he's the head of a mob
yeah.
organization. So all of these, she's like, the first thing I'm going to do is go to Muerta and be like, did you do this? Like she checks him on every one of these mysteries. So,
And I think that's what I kept waiting for him to be like, you know, like him to be the like ultimate secret bad guy behind everything, and I just like that it was more clever than that. So, yeah, and this was fun. Like it was like, oh, like the security guy is the one who did it. I was like, wow, like okay,
yeah, I mean,
um,
he was there, right? He would have access, and you know, it makes sense. But yeah, so that was the first issue. So one thing I like about these issues is they are full, complete stories. There's a beginning, middle, and end, but there's like underlying threads that continue throughout each issue. So like that one led into this one, and this one's called Drop Dead Handsome, and it's because Miss Tree is on a couples retreat or a singles retreat where she's going to meet men. She is a single lady, and you know she's wanting a beau, and so her and Effie go to like a singles resort place to meet people, and just so happens while they're out to dinner one night, she sees a guy she had a crush on from her high school days. And he was like the captain of the football team. His name is William Powers. And she's like, oh my God, look over there. That's William Powers. I went to school with him. And, you know, he's all rich now. He's like was it a real estate tycoon? Yeah, that's what she calls him. And he's out to dinner with his wife. But as they're talking about him, turns out him and his wife are having marriage troubles. She gets mad, slaps him, and walks out. So they see all of this. And then later they go to a dance. It's kind of like it's a recreation of like a 50s prom or something like that, I guess. And
yeah,
she's wearing her old, Miss Tree's wearing her old cheerleader uniform. And then she even told Effie that like, oh, me and William dated a little bit. Like we went on some dates, but he never really seemed interested in me. But at this dance, he's wearing his high school football uniform, and she sees him and he sees her. And then he says like, oh, you know, I had a crush on you too. But like, you know, I was too scared to say anything kind of thing. I was too nervous, and she falls for it. They like walk outside. They have a nice little night. They kiss. And she's totally into him. They don't have sex the first night, but she was into it. But he's like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. Like I gotta go to the office, and there's all this stuff going on right now. And, he does know who she is because, like we said, this isn't the first mystery book. Like there's all those issues before this. So everybody knows who she is because she is a badass bitch, like you said, who is in the papers all the time because she's taken down criminals and serial killers and pedophile rings and all this stuff. So her name's always in the newspapers as like Tree Private Eye Service, right? So he knows who she is. And so because of that, he asks her to help him out because he runs, you know, a big business that runs casinos as well. And part of that is he's getting pressure from the Muertas, specifically Donald. It doesn't say if he's like what he's doing, but like apparently he's kind of pressuring him. Is it to sell or is it just like, oh, like to buy into it? That's what it is, to buy into one of the casinos. So she, you know, is like, okay, like I guess, yeah, I can ask him, and he's scared of me, and that's no problem. And but he also says like that guy's been like calling me, leaving threats. And so like he's hitting pretty hard that Donald is a potential suspect for any crimes that might happen later in this issue. and and then and then she goes to his room, which is I guess in the same. It's weird, like he's got a suite in the building that he does all his business in, which I guess is efficient, right? If you have a somewhere you can sleep at your job, I guess. So he invites her up there, and they have burgers that are made to be like a diner, I guess, that they had in high school that they used to go to. And then that woos her. She's like, meat, like burgers and fries and, good food and drink and everything. Like, yeah, let's fuck. So they get into it. They have sex. I will say so this is a DC comic from the 90s. It's not explicit. Like, there's no nudity, but, there's a whole page of them kind of going
Yeah,
out.
like it's obvious like they go through positions and stuff.
There's positions. There's
yeah.
positions. You can also see his cum face.
Yeah.
Like he, I mean, they're having a good time. He's got sweat on his brow, and he is clenched. His face is clenched in that last panel. So, and I'm not just saying this because just to point it out. This comes into play later because when you have sex, sometimes he wasn't wearing protection. We'll say that. So, so she goes to talk to in the next day or whatever. She goes to talk to Donald Muerta to be like, hey, stop harassing my new beau. This guy, he says you're bothering him. And Donald's like, whoa. I'm just making like actual business, propositions to him. I'm not like pressuring him or anything, like nothing untoward. And she's like,
you got me all wrong.
Yeah. And she's like, okay, like, well, that's not what he's saying. So lay off. And then we cut to her on a boat on another date with this William Powers guy. Cause of course he's got his own yacht. And he's telling her that like he doesn't need security because they're on a boat and it's fine. She's like, no, if this guy's as crazy as you say he is, like whoever's calling you, like you should definitely do something. And also, like his wife has made violent threats towards him. So like she called and said she had a gun, things like that. So there's lots of like red herrings in this one, which I liked. You never know like who the fuck is the dangerous person in this. But then right when she says like, oh, you should take precautions, two guys pop up on ship. They have guns. They try to take them hostage, but Miss Tree beats the fuck out of them, throws them in the water, and kicks the guy in the nuts again. This is one of my favorite parts. One of the goons has a gun on her, and he says, "You're nuts, lady." And she says, "No." And then she kicks him in the nuts and says, "You're nuts." I was like, hell yeah, that's a great little pun or whatever. But yeah, so she tries to, afterwards she leaves, goes to the police station and says like, hey, to her friend, I don't remember his name, but she says like, hey, can you I'll tell you what the guys look like, you draw them, be on the lookout for these two. And no one recognizes them. But yeah, so she just keeps, doing her thing. She obviously likes William Powers, but she's also worried for his safety. So on their next date, they go to a little cottage by a lake, and he's like, "Oh, dang, I forgot my key. I guess we could just break in, So they break in, they make some more love, and as they're like sleeping after that, because there's broken glass where they broke in, Miss Tree hears a crunch, like someone's walking on the glass. So she wakes up, she pulls out her gun, and the light turns on, and it turns out it's the wife of William Powers, and she also has a gun. And she yells out, "Bill, you bastard!" And she raises the gun to him. But Miss Tree already was drawn on her. So she shoots him, or she shoots her, I'm sorry. She shoots the wife and kills her before the wife can shoot Bill or Miss Tree. This was like the only kill in this that was, I mean, obviously she had a gun, so it was dangerous, but she was kind of an innocent compared to all the other people that die in this, right? Yeah. So you can tell it means something. Like it also is unlike the other kills we've seen so far, Miss Tree cries at the afterward. Like she like gets the picture of the wife off the wall and cries. Um, and then so after that, things aren't adding up quite. Um, for example, like the wife had a friend, and Miss Tree is suspicious of like everything that's going on. So she has Dan from her agency look into the friend with the wife of the wife, and the friend says, "Oh, like no, she's not a very violent person. In fact, the husband William was the guy who gave her the gun. Also, she'd been getting threatening phone calls, and even though their marriage was stormy, she wasn't like a violent person. So she was more worried about other stuff happening, like other people killing her or whatever. And in fact, the husband was increasing her anxiety about that because he was telling her that Donald Muerta was after her as well. Like he's gonna use her to get to William. So this is all she needs to hear. She figures it out. She goes to William's house, and immediately he gives her a hug and says, "Oh my God, I love you." And then she pulls out her gun and puts it in his face and says, "I hate you." And because she's figured it out, he's the bad guy. He set this all up from the beginning. Like I said, everybody knows who she is. And he, I guess, knew she was going to be at this couple's retreat, went to the retreat, or not, sorry, the singles retreat, went to the retreat, staged the whole thing with his wife. It wasn't actually his wife. It was like some other woman, and who was dressed up. I think it was like his secretary. And so they did that whole thing. He came on to her. He was like, at first he was saying like, "Oh, like at first it was a trick, but like then I fell in love with you. Please, Michael, don't kill me." And then, but yeah, it turns out, she got her heart broken. Basically, she was not very happy about this, but she is going to let him live. Like she's going to turn him into the cops, basically. But before that can happen, someone else yells, "You bastard!" And then 4 shots ring out and go through his chest from the back. And it turns out that she is the killer is that the person that killed him is the secretary that was apparently his lover in the background. So, did you see any of that coming, John? Did you figure this one out?
Yeah, this is the one of the ones that I really enjoyed. Like I did not see the like he said that he was having problems with his wife and they were definitely getting divorced, which is what every married man says that wants to cheat. Uh, but also like so that happening and then her being like actually being upset by killing her, because she just went to do it right away, and then having the secretary there like, "Oh, he said he loved me too," and it's like, yeah, see, so
He's just a
he's been
player.
going around.
Yeah. And he used her to kill his wife and all that stuff. Because also his wife was rich. So his business was actually in trouble. So he, because they hadn't divorced yet, was going to inherit all of her money and everything. So that was why he did it. Yeah, I liked that one a lot. I thought that was really good. I liked, because at first I thought she shot him, but then it was like, no, it was the girl he was cheating with. So makes sense. But the next issue starts, and it's called The Family Way. And in this one, it is a return of a character. I don't know if this character was in the old comics. I don't think so. But his name is Frankie Muerta. He comes out of a psychiatric ward. He says he gets out, and immediately he kidnaps the daughter of Dominique. So Lisa is her name, right? Lisa,
Yeah,
who is dating Mike Jr. So automatically, Miss Tree is going to get pissed off about this, and the Muertas are going to get pissed off about this. And we don't know why I guess I can't remember why he does it, like why he kidnaps her. I think it's just
he feels like he's owed because like the things are trying to go legit or whatnot, and like, but he was tied up in the
oh, that's right. He wants Donald to give him control of the company because he's like a real mob guy. Like he's willing to do violence. He's not like these new guys that are doing, little, what you call it, like they're doing business deals, like legit deals. He wants to go back to the way it was. So he kidnaps her, and in the background, like Michael is kind of feeling bad. She's got some kind of stomach bug. She's been throwing up, um, and just not feeling good, kind of weak and everything. So, um, and also like we get a little bit. This is the first time we get kind of introduced to Michael Jr. And we find out that her relationship with her stepson is kind of rocky. Um, in the past, so after obviously the husband got killed, she got custody of the child, and then, but he did have a mom for a while that was like her, that was his first wife, Michael Tree's first wife, and then, um, and then she gets killed in those earlier comics. So he's very like he calls her Miss Tree because he's like, you're not my mom kind of thing. But he respects her, but like there's definitely like a rocky bit of the relationship there. So like I said, she's feeling bad, but she decides to still figure out what's going on because Donald comes to her house and tells her, hey, like, don't tell Michael this, but someone has kidnapped Lisa, and I need you to figure out who it is. And I think it's Frankie, or I know it's Frankie. So, he doesn't need her to figure out who it is. He needs her to kill Frankie is what it is, because he knows like, oh, Frankie could take over my position as the head of the family, and you want Lisa back. So why don't you kill Frankie and both, kill two birds with one stone? Like, I'm happy, you're happy, we're all happy. So, and he gives a little history on how crazy Frankie is. So she's like, of course, like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not like a cold-blooded murderer. And he's like, really? You could have fooled me. Because she's literally shot people who were just wounded on the ground unarmed after she incapacitated them. But she does a little, and she decides to take the case, of course, because she wants to help Lisa find her and all that stuff. And she does a little digging on, Frankie learns that like, oh, he is a crazy man. Like, he will just kill for the fun of killing and stuff. And everybody who's worked with him before is like, dude, you see this fucking scar on my face? That's from Frankie. Like, I don't want to fuck with that guy. So, she decides to not tell her son, Michael Jr., what she's doing because she doesn't want him to get worried about Lisa. But she's just like, I'm on a job. I can't tell you what it is, but it's got to do with the family. But he doesn't really believe it. He's kind of like,
well, yeah, she's being so not quiet and secretive about it. So
yeah, but she is telling him like, look, I can't tell you. It's a case that I can't talk about, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm taking care of it, and I'll be as honest as I can, but I can't really tell you anything. So then we see Frankie. He's taking her to a house, and this house is actually, this is a very like Harley Quinn Joker vibe I had here. We're like, Frankie is crazy, and he's a big guy who's violent, and he broke out of an asylum, and the woman who was helping him, it was like the nurse's aide or whatever at the asylum, fell for him, and this is her old family home. So they're hiding out in there, and she's very much like a Harley Quinn kind of.
Johnny has a good line. He's like, yeah, is that girl, I think her name's Jennifer, like fell in love with him. It's, he got under her spell, and he's handsome in a horror movie kind of way.
Yeah, like he's very violent, but he can be sweet. He can pretend, And it turns out that she has had a lot of abuse in her family. We do find out that her father sexually and physically abused her, and then eventually Mystery, after she's sick still, she's still not feeling good, and she eventually finds out like, okay, there's a woman who I need to talk to who works at the hospital. Then that person is the mom of this girl who's with Frankie, who thinks she's in love with him, and the mom tells her all about the shitty childhood that the girl had, and how the father abused her sexually and physically, and eventually he got killed. So she's kind of using Frankie as her dad. She has daddy issues, let's put it that way, because she does also call him daddy, which is creepy as fuck.
Yeah, she did do the daddy thing.
Yeah, so Mystery finds out where the house is from the mom that they grew up in, and so she goes there because she's like, that's where she would go. And Frankie decides to go check on, or as Mystery is kind of scoping out the house, Frankie decides to go check on the car in the barn, and Mystery confronts him, and he's bigger than her, by a lot. He's like probably like 6'7" or something like that. He's super buff too. And he was going to make a call to Donald to be like, hey, where are you at with my money? And also like, where this deal? And like, I want control. Are you going to give it to me? So he had a phone in his hand. He throws it at her before she can fire, because she wasn't originally going to kill him, because also she wants to use Frankie as like to turn him over to the police, to be a stool pigeon for the police, against the Muertas, and put them away for good. So she didn't fire immediately, which was to her detriment, because he throws the phone at her face, which like disarms her, which lets him get close enough to disarm her, and then he he doesn't know who she is fully. She knows a little bit, or he knows a little bit about her, but she tries to knee him in the nuts. He blocks it, and then also like, but he gets close enough to her that she bites his nose, and so like that was a pretty hardcore move, I thought.
She is scrappy, and like, yeah, she'll pretty much do anything to get the job done. So
yeah, so she bites his nose. I love this part because before she does that, he says, "Is that your best move, baby? You stink." And she goes, "Really? Well, let me give you some relief." And that's when she bites off his nose, because he said stink, right? So that works. But obviously he's super pissed at her. He eventually does get the better of her, and he like puts her on a hook in the barn, but she gets out of that as well. And then he's chasing her up into the loft. And what do you think about this scene? I thought this was pretty clever. As he's getting up into the loft, he says, "Come on, baby, time for a little roll in the hay with Frankie," because he's about to murder her. And she's like, "Okay, why not?" And she pulls off her top and shows him her tits. And he stops dead in his tracks, and he goes, They're big." And that gives her enough time to kick him, and he falls and gets knocked out on the ground. So what'd you think about that moment, John?
oh yeah, I thought that was hysterical. Again, she will do anything to be able to I guess one up and win. And and again, it always fits in like the little one liner kind of things. The one liner came from him, but she's like, yeah, okay, why not? And
Yeah.
so pulling off her top to do that was pretty hysterical.
Yeah, it's a good way to stop him, right? And he was in the asylum for a long time. He's probably pretty.
Yeah, he's only been around with Jennifer, and we don't know what they've done. So.
They do mention that they insinuate that they did have sex earlier, but
no, they did. That's right, because
she calls him daddy.
We find out.
We'll say that.
Yeah, but because when she's gonna, as things progress here, we find out, because he looks like he's gonna hit her once, and she's like, "Don't do that. It's not good for the baby."
Right. Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah. Besides the being pregnant, I think that same night, because he said like, "I'm going to put her in the room, and why don't we stay down here?" And
yeah.
So anyway, Miss Tree goes to the house, pulls a gun on the girl, and gets Lisa. The girl takes her to the room, and where Lisa's tied up, and they get Lisa. But then Frankie comes in because he gets out of his bindings that she tied him up with, and he grabs the gun from her before she can do anything. But I don't remember why. I guess because like the girl was talking to Miss Tree a little bit and like I guess her mind got confused about Frankie and who was right and wrong, and what's the right thing to do here. So she actually bites Frank's arm, and then he slaps her. And when she bit his arm, that made him drop the gun. And then Miss Tree gets the gun, but still Frankie is very capable. So he grabs the gun out of her hand because she's close to him, and then he throws her out of the window onto the porch, on the second-story balcony, and then all of a sudden he gets shot as he's about to, I guess, go out there and kill Miss Tree. And it turns out Michael Jr. followed Miss Tree there. And so he had gone in the room, picked up the gun, and shot Frankie. And so they take all the women to the hospital because all of them have injuries. And one of the things that happened is when Jennifer is her name, the girl, when Jennifer was hit by Frankie, she lost her baby. But Miss Tree, she was getting checked out. The doctor goes, "But don't worry, your baby's just fine." And Miss Tree's like, "Wait, what? What now?"
What?
She's 3 months pregnant, and that's why she was sick earlier and that's why I mentioned the throwing up or the non-protected sex earlier too. So she got pregnant from William Powers, and then we get the namesake issue of this trade, which is One Mean Mother. The next issue starts with Miss Tree shooting at someone in the rain, and then she falls down as she goes into labor, and then we go back in time to see where what happened to get to that moment, and we see Miss Tree is very, very pregnant. She is almost 9 months pregnant at the beginning of this, and basically her office makes her go on maternity leave because she's been cranky and horrible to work with. So they're like, we'll take over. You stay at home. And so as she's agreeing to this and everything, she still has Effie to help her out. So Effie's been kind of going out with her, making sure she's okay, getting her stuff that she needs. As they're walking out of the office, Miss Tree almost gets hit by a car, but it was almost like the car tried to hit her. And so that was a little weird. And then, she just kind of writes it off as an accident. And then Miss Tree's at home by herself. And luckily Michael shows up and he's saying like, hey, I just want to say I'm sorry. I've been kind of distant and weird ever since I shot that guy, but I'm not sad about it, but another reason why he's been feeling weird is that she's keeping this baby, the baby of a man who was a horrible person, right? So she says, and I think this is kind of interesting, she says, basically I've killed so many people in my life, I just don't want to kill another person that's like innocent. I don't want to kill an actual innocent person, meaning her baby. And also, like, I had an abortion with your dad, like when me and your dad first got together, because we weren't ready for a child, and then he died. And I feel like if I can't have another abortion because it's like in memory of him, like the baby I should have had with him, kind of thing. So, like Michael's kind of shocked by all this, but he says, that's fine. Like he's cool with it. They have like a heart to heart and hug it out. Then they're like, let's go get some pizza. And he's like, okay. And as they're going down the stairs from her apartment, she grabs onto the handrail and it breaks free and she almost falls. And Michael catches her, Michael Jr., but if he hadn't been there, she would have fallen and potentially lost the child. So even though the car almost hitting her was kind of written off as like an accident, this is something she's thinking, that's too many times I've almost died in one day, kind of thing. So first thing she does is go to Donald and say, hey, did you try to kill me? And Donald's like, no, we're like family. Like literally, you're about to be engaged, or your son is engaged to my niece or whatever. So like they're about to get married. I would not. In fact, I even said, don't do anything to Miss Tree to like everybody that works for me. So, and then, but it turns out that William Powers' father, William Powers Sr., has become aware of her being pregnant, and he calls her and says, hey, or no, he hasn't become aware of her pregnant. They read about him in the paper because he's taken over. And they mentioned there's like another guy, like his brother, I guess, the brother of William Powers Jr., the man that she slept with, has taken the reins of power, and William Sr. is like just living in an estate. He's a rich guy. So she reads a newspaper about this, goes to talk to the dad. The dad didn't even know that she was dating William or that she's pregnant, but he's very happy about that. He's like, oh my God, Billy's alive. Like Billy can live through you, basically. Like he had a child. That's amazing. I'm so happy about this. But in the background, one of the servants at the house calls the brother. What's his name? Do we know his name? They just said his name was like MT. So.
Oh yeah, he's a cousin. It's
cousin.
Yeah, it's I wrote it down. Hold on. Myron
Powers. So Myron Powers is in charge of the company, and he got called by the servant to warn him that, oh, there's a baby. Now your dad knows. He's very happy. There's a problem, or not your dad. I guess your uncle knows. He's very happy about it. This is bad for you. So, since Miss Tree doesn't know who's trying to kill her, because obviously the senior guy isn't, she's like, I'm going to go into hiding. So she goes in the house with Effie in the middle of nowhere. They drive there, but they are followed by two guys. And this is one of my favorite fucking fight scenes ever because Effie's like, I'm going to go get some food or whatever. You stay here. I'll be right back. And she goes to get some food. The guys were waiting for her to leave, for Effie to leave so they could get in the house and kill her and kill Miss Tree. And so while one of them leaves, the other guy stays in the car. So the guy that leaves and goes to the house, peeks in, sees Miss Tree sleeping. He breaks into a basement window, goes down there, sneaks back up, and he actually like gets the jump on her because she's sleeping in a chair. But stupidly, he pulls out a roll of tape and rips it open. And that rip of the tape, breaking off, wakes her up. But it's still too late. She gets her mouth taped and her feet and hands. And as he's moving her down to the basement to try to like kill her down there, she pushes him as he opens the door, and he falls down and breaks his neck on the stairs. I was like, that's great. Like that is total mystery, And then the guy in the car is like, man, what's taking him so long? And then all of a sudden he gets a knock on the window, and it turns out it's Miss Tree. She points a gun at him. He drives off, but then she fires, and this is where the first page was. She's firing at him in the rain. It goes through the back glass, and it shoots him twice in the chest, and then he crashes the car, and he is dead. And then she immediately goes into labor as Effie pulls up. So we take her to the hospital, and then this was like a good twist, I thought, right? We see Myron is meeting in the middle of a cornfield with Donald. So you're like, oh my God, Donald did do it. Donald was trying to kill her. But no, Myron asked for two killers, but he didn't tell Donald why he needed them. But Donald now knows, because he knows Miss Tree is in the hospital, that those were the killers who were supposed to, who he lent to Myron. So Myron's like, you told me your killers would work out. They didn't. And he's like, well, you didn't tell me you were going after my fucking sister-in-law or whatever. Or like, like my family. Yeah. So then he's just like, as you do when you're a mob boss, he's like, boys, take him out. And then like, they just fucking murder this guy in the middle of a field. It's like total like casino style. And yeah, it was pretty awesome, I thought. What'd you think of this one? This one was a little bit more like you could probably figure out who it was because that servant called him. But what about the Dominic twist at the end?
That's one of the things I was gonna say is like I got excited. I was like, okay, see, he's finally the bad guy. Like I get it. But then for him to be like, oh no, I didn't know it was mystery. Like fuck you, kill this motherfucker. I was like, oh, okay, like that's a good red herring.
Yeah,
I really enjoy that they're making the guy who obviously looks like a bad guy is not like the actual like bad guy of this thing.
Yes. Yeah, I fucking loved it. I was like, yes, this is exactly what you want. Also, this issue is great because she's pregnant and she's still a badass, but like not unrealistically. Like, I've heard criticisms of, like they did like Catwoman was pregnant for a while, and she's jumping around buildings pregnant in high heels and stuff. And like some women were like, this is empowering, and others were like, what, now I got to be a fucking superhero on top of being pregnant and a mom and all this shit. So like, there's two sides of that, right? Or at least those are two of the sides I read about it. Whereas this was like, she's not doing anything crazy. She's just like fighting for her life, very as needed. And then, she's taking out the bad guys, and it's not in like an unrealistic way,
Yeah.
So I feel like it's empowering.
Yeah. That's one thing all throughout is like, I never feel like even though she may get into like things progressively will get harder in situations for her, and like she's really got to put her all into it. Like she's still it's never not believable like that she is a way to figure out how to like get out of that situation, be scrappy, and like come out on top.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they do a really good job. And also you see like the progression of her as a mom, because the next issue starts and the baby's born, and she names the baby Melody after the wife William Power's wife who she killed. But it turns out, like she was kind of innocent, we'll say. She was a pawn in Michael Power, or in William Power's game or whatever, ploy to take her money and divorce her or whatever. So, yeah, so she names the baby Melody after the wife who was killed, and then she's being a good mom. It's been 3 months or whatever, so now she's going back to work, and she invites her sister over, and we learn a little bit about her history with her sister. Turns out their dad was a cop, and her sister was like kind of the problem child. She had been into drugs and stuff, but she has since got herself clean, and she has moved back to help Miss Tree with the baby now that she's going back to work. And so, she does the whole like, this is, everything's good. I trust you fully. Just so you know, I am like a PI that people want to kill. Here's all the guns in my house. So if someone breaks in, feel free to fucking shoot them. And then, and then immediately after Miss Tree leaves, guess what? Someone does break into the house and steals the baby and shoots the sister before she can reach one of the guns.
Immediately after she
yeah.
I was like, she should have seen this person coming. Like, it was just like, at least it made it seem like it was like pretty much right away.
Yeah, but also like, she's at the office. They show her at the office by the time this guy goes in, but it's like it's a page turn away, so it seems really quick.
Yeah.
But there was like time in between. But I just thought it was funny, like, hey, just in case you need it, there's a gun. People want to kill me. Just be careful. Anyway, I'm going to the office, and then when she's at the office, oh my god, someone broke in and stole my baby and and shot my sister. So no one knows this though, of course. So we don't know how her sister is. We do see her get shot twice in the back that goes through her chest, and then the baby's taken. And Miss Tree comes home thinking, I love this. This was like one of my favorite parts. Like Miss Tree leaves the office and she's like, after everything that's happened, it's so wonderful to be back to work. But God, I can't believe how much I miss that baby. Like I love her so much, and like it feels like Christmas morning coming back from the office back to the house, because that's how excited she is to see her baby. And it was very touching. Like she's a very sweet woman, even though she is like a badass, like, and the writing pulls it off, like balances that very well, I thought. But then when she comes home, she finds her sister shot and her baby gone. And good God, if there's a woman you don't want pissed off at you, it is Miss Tree. You don't steal her baby, or shoot her sister. So Miss Tree basically goes on her own vendetta. Like she doesn't trust the police. She's like, it's fine. She actually even doesn't tell the police that the baby was stolen. They just think that the sister was shot, but she doesn't tell them that the baby was taken. So she takes it on herself to find out who the fuck did this, because it's her baby, goddammit. So she hires a new guy, like another guy she could work with named Mr. Hands, and which is funny because Dan only has one hand. So I feel like this is on purpose, but Mr. Hands looks like a French spy. He's got like a very long, very couture mustache, and he wears turtlenecks and shit. He looks like a spy, basically.
Yeah, he definitely looks like a French assassin or something.
Yeah. But we got Roger and Dan, and they're on the move with her, like trying to figure out who did all this stuff, who stole the baby. So, and also they get a call from the people eventually that tell her that, we want $20,000 and we'll return your baby. Meet us here. So they go to a warehouse, and they do hear over the phone, because they record it and they listen back, there was like a foghorn sound, but they weren't sure. So they bring the money, and also before they go, Mr. Hands is like, hey, let's be safe. Why don't you wear some body armor, Miss Tree? And at first Miss Tree protests, but then we do find out later she wore it, because it turns out that this is a trap. And when she does hand the money over to this guy that she doesn't recognize, she's immediately shot from a second person who's up on some boxes in this warehouse. But Mr. Hands is on the job. He fucking slits this dude's throat. No questions asked. I was like, Mr. Hands is a badass. But yeah, and then it turns out that's the guy who got the money's brother, so it makes him go crazy. And then, like I said, we saw Miss Tree get shot in the chest, but she's okay. And then she shoots at the guy who took the money. And like I said, he's all pissed. He's got an Uzi. He's shooting at them because they killed his brother. But he's getting hit. But he's also wearing body armor, so it doesn't do anything. So even though she wants him alive because she wants to know who hired him, she can't risk that. So she shoots him in the head and blows off half his skull. I thought that was pretty hardcore for a DC comic of the 90s. Like, some of the violence in this is pretty
Try
harsh.
to shoot like in the foot or the knee or something.
Yeah, how do you do that? You're gonna shoot him.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
obviously, you gotta be
yeah, that's not gonna
right on
disable
shot.
him.
So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, the only part that could have been disabled that she could have shot that wasn't covered by body armor was his head, and so she shoots him in the head, kills him. Obviously, he can't talk, but they're like, "Hey, why don't we follow up on that foghorn thing?" Also, like they check a car and they find the keys in there are for like some sort of hotel room, and it's a rental car. And these guys had like a Belgian accent, so these guys are from out of town. They're assassins. They're like, "Hey, who would know who these assassins are?" And they're like, "Maybe Dom or maybe Donald knows." So they call Donald. They tell him, "You better get your ass down here." He looks at the bodies. He's like, "I don't know who they are." And they're like, "Cool. We know you didn't do it then." Um, so he's off their suspect list. And then they kind of follow up on all these leads until they find out that one of the guys who organized this was a man in political power. I don't remember who he is, but he's some kind of like business guy who's rubbing elbows with people. And Miss Tree goes to this fundraising event that he's at, and she pays a one of the servers there to like tell him he's got a phone call in the bathroom. And I thought this was fantastic. I don't know if you got fooled by this, but she brings him to the roof, or like he goes to the bathroom. She pulls a gun on him. She brings him to the roof with Roger. And then she asks him all the questions like, who did it? You know, where's my daughter? All this kind of shit. She smacks him around. And then as he's like, you know, saying like, don't worry, like, it's fine. She's not going to be killed. I'm telling the truth. She's like, I know. And she pushes him off the roof and he falls. Were you fooled by this?
oh no! I thought she was. I figured she was just killing him like full blown on.
Yeah, like just thrown on the top off the top of this skyscraper. Well, it turns out that there was a fire escape, which luckily for them, for this guy, yeah. But he's so scared that he does tell her where to find the baby, and so they go, to go find them on the boat, because that's where they heard the foghorn and everything's matching up. So they go there. And they kill the two men. And this is the same boat that she had sex with Michael, or was his name William Powers on, that where she got pregnant. So she's like, I know this boat. and yeah, so they take out the guards. She doesn't kill one of them because he tells her where the baby's being hid, and as opposed to where the bad guys are. So she comes in, guns blazing, shoots the guy. Like, this is one of my favorite parts. The guy's like, the guy's saying like, no, I swear I'm not the one who shot your sister. And she's like, liar. And then she just shoots him. Like, he's on the ground unarmed. She just fucking murders him. And then she goes, and like the best thing is the woman who's the accomplice in this, it turns out it's a man and woman team that kidnapped the baby. The woman is with the baby in the room. She's holding a gun and she's hearing bam, bam, bam. So she knows, oh shit, like they're here. But immediately when she sees Miss Tree, she drops the gun and she doesn't even try to hold the baby hostage or anything. Hands the baby over to Michael, or to Miss Tree. Yeah, and she's allowed to leave. That was nice of Miss Tree, I thought. I thought she was going to shoot her in the back or something. And then that's it. Like, the baby's returned. Miss Tree ends up in the hospital, or at the hospital with visiting her sister, who's now awake. She didn't die. That's good.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And then it turns out that the man who orchestrated all of this was William Powers Sr., the guy from 2 Stories Back that was so happy about the baby. It turns out he orchestrated the kidnapping of the baby because he just wanted the baby to be like the next heir or whatever, now that, Myron was killed. So yeah, like he was going to raise her and have her adopted by someone, and Miss Tree was never supposed to know about it.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like, basically, they're like, we already had people lined up, like they were gonna pose as like the natural parents, and like to like just try to, I guess, so like they could still be part of that powerful family. And it was like, oh my god, that's insane.
Evil old rich people. And then, but one thing they do mention about William Powers Sr. is that he's got a bad ticker, like his heart's bad, and so she basically threatens him, and she says like, don't worry, you're never going to meet my child. You're never going to meet your granddaughter. In fact, I'm going to tell her that you tried to kidnap her and kill her aunt. And, her father was a terrible person. and I'm gonna spoil I'm gonna spoil you for her. And that like pisses him off because he's like, "You're a witch," and then all of a sudden he gets all excited and his heart starts freaking out and he starts having a heart attack. And he's like, "My meds, quick, give me my medicine!" And she's like, "I am." And then she walks away from him and his medicine and lets him die in the chair. And that is the end of this trade. So, John, what did you think and what would you give it?
I loved it. I loved every story. I think, like you said, like some of them, I felt like you could kind of figure out where they were going, but there were a few in there that I didn't see the twists in it. And like I said, I really loved the red herring of Donnie. I kept waiting for him to be like the actual like big bad behind things. And
Right,
he was the only time he got close was like a situation of like misunderstanding and like not knowing the full story.
right.
So then it was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, fuck this guy for trying to kill my family, and yeah, so I like that. I like that. Like it seemingly the obvious bad guy was never really a bad guy, quote unquote, for to the main character at least. And then Miss Tree held her own. She was badass the whole time, even when she was pregnant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed it, man. This was fun. I put this up there like as far as like my enjoyment of the Parker novels. Like I really enjoyed this, and I totally want to read all of these.
Uh huh. So, what would you give it?
And I would give this one an 8. This is a really good introduction. This is very solid, and like I know you said, this is like you said, it's a good introduction as far as like jumping on point, because some of the early stuff wasn't like maybe like as
As polished.
flushed out,
The writing was
polished.
there,
Yeah,
but the art was, it's a little bit sketchier because they didn't have money and stuff. And he's he's a younger artist.
yeah, but I still want to read the stories. Like I'm very involved and intrigued. So yeah,
Awesome.
so 8.
8. Cool. So I also misspoke. I think I said his name was Scott Beatty. The artist on this is Terry Beatty. I think I spoke wrong earlier, but yeah, he did really good work. I like his work in this because it's very, this is a book about people talking to each other. Like there's just lots of scenes of people talking. And when there's action and it's great and there's violence and stuff. But a lot of it is people talking and her discovering clues and shit. I think he does a really good job of panel composition and setting up pages. And yeah, he just does a really good job with his art. And so, and the writing is like another level. I think it reads a lot like a book. There's a lot of narration from Miss Tree, to the reader or even to herself or whatever. And like, I don't know, it reads like a novel, but like in a perfect comic book way. So it's not overly talky. There's definitely a lot more words than like a normal modern comic, but I didn't feel ever like it was bogged down by anything. Like everything needed to be there that was there. And yeah, I loved pretty much the whole flow of it. And it gave it like a pace, like a nice steady pace where you, as the reader, if you read all of it, were getting lots of clues, and in your head, you're kind of churning those clues and putting puzzle pieces together. So yeah, this is top 5, maybe even top 3 crime books. This whole series, not one of those books, not one of the volumes is bad. Everything about it's been good so far. And like I said, there's only one left, and it's volume 5, and I can't imagine that's any worse or something. It's not going to be bad. So this to me is a fucking 10. I'm giving this a 10. I think more people should read this. I'm surprised no one talks about this. I'm surprised this hasn't been made into a movie or a TV show. Especially right now, if you want like a good empowered female, lead character, this would be great, right?
Yeah, she's a badass. Like yeah, I would put her up there with like in the same category as like Ripley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's badass
For sure. So yeah, that's Miss Tree, and I hope all of you go out and check out the comics because our breakdown, of course, is an overview of the stories, but there's so much on the page that we didn't talk about because, like I said, these are 40-page issues, and they're so dense with fun information and like plot and all that stuff. So it's very good. So definitely check them out. And this month we're doing, like we said, the Thanksgiving family stuff. So for our Patreon, for the next episode, we're going to be voting on what books, John?
Yeah, so we've got that up now. If you want to become a Patreon member, patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books. We got a couple tiers, and you always get to vote on the following one. You get to choose about which we're going to be doing. So we've got for family matters, things that are going on with weird families or weird things in families. We've got Saga by Brian K. Vaughan, Coraline, the graphic novel adaptation by Neil Gaiman, Blankets by Craig Thompson, and Batman: A Death in the Family by Jim Starlin.
Yes. So all of those have fucked up family stuff in them. So perfect. So yeah, if you guys want to vote on that, you can become patrons at patreon.com/planes of comic books. But you do get to listen to that one for free. But we also do an exclusive episode every month as well, and that's just for patrons. So once again, if you would like to become a patron to get that exclusive episode, and then also vote on what episode gets to happen for the second episode of each month, patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books. And speaking of patrons, we'd like to thank our patrons, Hoku, Otaku Mike, Christian, Matthew, Kyla, Joseph, Mira, and Kevin. You guys are awesome. We love you all. And yeah, we hope you guys are enjoying all the funness. And we hope you guys check out Miss Tree, because this is a lost gem, and they're finally kind of printing all of them in one spot. I don't think they've ever been printed before. So definitely go check those out. And they're from Titan Comics now. I think Titan has the license, so they're reprinting them in nice, softcover collections. So yeah, and I found a couple like in the wild, like actual issues. So I'm trying to get them all collected myself, like in single issue form.
Nice.
So, yeah, and they're pretty cheap to find.
I can definitely, as if I go to, I'll keep an eye for you, man. I'll let you know if I see.
Yeah, it's one of those titles no one's picking up, So.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I want to read more, and if I like it, if I might, because I'm totally gonna get that. I think I told you I just saw the full collection from Darwin Cook for the Parker.
Oh yeah, the complete Parker. Yeah, that just came out.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that because I know we haven't read them all, but I loved every single one we've read, so I don't.
Right. Well, that has the 2 one-shot issues in it too that weren't collected in the cover, the covers that we read, or the books that we read. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna get that, and I definitely want to read more of these. Yeah, because like I said, it felt like it was in the same vein of like it excited me in the same way the Parker novels did. So yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think we're all good. Once again, if you guys want to sign up for our Patreon, it's patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books. And with that, we'll see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.